that Google is doing the heavy lifting, and I've kind of haven't actioned it. So it's kind of like now it's like fuck the amount we're spending on Meta.
Mm.
If it's actually not doing the lifting, I'll
So
get
here's
back
an
to that one.
interesting feed, right? So if we're looking, first and foremost, your budgets here were lower in January. You started to scale here. What happened? So your NCAC went from the moment you started scaling, your NCAC went from 55, 40, 50, 60, 70, all the way up to 70, 70, 70, 80 is it now? So business-wise, your NCAC is like this. Now, if we're looking at your NMER, your new customer media efficiency ratio, you went on this level from a 4 down to a 3 to 2.2 to 2.5. So there's quite some fluctuation. Now, if we're looking at regular MER, we see that you went from, let's say, 10-ish down to a 7,
Yeah.
7-ish. So,
January is a funny month for us though,
yeah.
Vincent. Like it's December, January are really generally quiet months. So the advertising I almost turn off, especially over December.
Mm.
So it takes a while to come back. So what's our you can see revenue, I suppose it's not too bad there, is it?
No, the total
29 down.
revenue, 20 total revenue is like this. The thing that I'm looking for though is patterns, right? So I even in January, it's a funny month. You're spending less euros, but the thing is, the moment you start increasing your ad spend to this, you see that this number drops. So it is not getting any more efficient. You might get more revenue, but if your NCAC grows with like what is it, 50, 40%, then that doesn't sound too good because it makes no sense. So we have to figure out, okay, then where are we losing sales? Now, the other thing that I'm looking at here is your percentage of new customers. Here it was around 55 to 60. That still is the case. So in that way, there's no like, oh, we get more returning than new as a percentage. That seems to be fine. I think the biggest thing here is I see a major swap in budgets. So here it's like 60, 50%, 40, 50%, 60 on Meta. And then here it's all the way up to 70% on Meta. And Google is 30%, while Google here was 40%. So it
Yeah.
seems it seems like
But the
the
Google spend
ratio.
has stayed consistent if you look at that. Like
Yeah,
the ratio's
Google,
gone down, but the spend is still fairly
exactly.
steady.
Yeah. And it looks like so. For you, it looks like this additional spend on Meta is actually making it more expensive, but not contributing to more sales. Because if you look at this, here you were at 3K spend, 3.5, 3.6. You did roughly in new customers 68, 73. Now you're also at 68, 77, but you're spending 2K more, right? So you're not
Yeah.
acquiring more new customers. You're actually inflating, you make it more expensive because your NCAC, your new customer acquisition cost, went from 40, 50 here all the way up to 86 here in the last 2 weeks, 70 to 80. So it means then that if Google has stayed consistent and Meta has increased, and now Meta should lower the spend because it seems like Google is a more important at least Google is stable. Google's chipping in, but as Google has stayed consistent here, but the budget ratio has gone down, Meta has gone up, then the only reason for the inflation is Meta. So with you, it's a reverse of what you see with most clients. Most clients, Meta is leading. With you, you can see that the moment you start scaling Meta, um, the NCAC actually grew, but there's no contribution in effective sales, really, like very marginal. That's what we see here.
It's interesting, eh?
It is. And that's why we track business health, because as you can see, the
Yeah.
platform health tell you both it's doing amazing. Now, Google has been staying consistent with the spend, so that's good because then we have one stable factor, right? It's always good to have one stable factor because if both would be fluctuating, it would be a more difficult process to check this. But yeah, you can see you went all the way from 2K on Meta, 1.5 to 4K, and the only thing that happened is that your NCAC increased, like from 55 all the way up to 83, 86. So per new customer, instead of paying 40 bucks, 48 bucks, you're now paying 80, 86 bucks per new customer.
Okay. That's,
You want?
I mean, that's really interesting, slightly concerning. Is there, what about intangibles? I mean, because we are having good sales. You know, the last couple of months have been good. We've got good revenue.
Mhm.
Um, I know if we're looking like that last week, it doesn't look like there's that many more new customers, but some of those weeks there's like 78 customers and 84 customers.
Mhm.
You know, like, is it possible with just some of the traffic that's generated from it just takes longer to turn into customers, or is it snaffled
Well,
up by Google, or like what's the? Because
um,
revenue is definitely up. You know,
yeah.
like we're having strong months.
Yeah, well, and that's fine. But if you look at, so this is the equation of how much revenue do you get in and how much ad spend did you do, right? And so the MER is literally nothing else than your total revenue divided by total cost. You get your MER. Here you had 41,000, and you spent close to 6K, so the MER becomes a 7.35. If we go all the way back to January, here this week, you got close to, let's say, 30K, or this one, 30K, and you spend 3K. So that's a 10. So no matter the delay, if you look through these weeks, you can see how
Yeah,
the MER has fluctuated as your ad spend scaled. So and the nCAC tracks per customer and the MER tracks it with revenue. So what you'll see is that it has only gotten more expensive for you to acquire a new customer. That's truth. That's truth
yeah.
based on
So
Shopify
that's
data.
truth. So it doesn't mean that you can't. It's still not worth it to get the customers, though, does it?
Well, that's the question. The next question would be, what are your margins? So if you have an AOV of 345 bucks, what is your product? What is your gross margin? What's your contribution? And maybe that 83 is still very, very fine. I cannot tell you that, but this is just tracking that you went from a 55, 50-ish all the way up to 83. Now, the only thing that you gained was about 11,000 at on top on extra. So look at this. Here on this one, you had a MER of 10. You put in
Yeah,
3K, you got back 30,000. Now, if we take from all the way from down here to here, you got 11,000 extra, right? From 30,000 to 41, let's say 12,000 extra.
yeah,
However, you spend roughly 2,500 to acquire an additional 12,000. So that
yeah,
instead of a 10 MER, it goes down to a 5 or 6 MER. Could still be okay, but it depends on your business margins, right?
yeah. So
And
six is okay. Six is good for us. We can
okay.
work on a six. That's what our target is all along, generally.
Yeah. So, again, as you maybe can put more data in from the weeks and also preferably for the other months, we have more because this is obviously from the beginning. So this is from January. So we see a lesser spend. So maybe before that, we were also at 80 at some point. I cannot see that right now. I just see this snapshot of data, right?
Yeah.
But it is good to keep track of, okay, we're currently at
So
83.
yeah, I agree, Vin, and like it definitely is an eye opener. So the million-dollar question is, uh, are we spending our money in the wrong place?
That is a very good question indeed. So, um, what we're looking at here. So we have Meta's budgets also went from, let's say, 55 to 60 all the way up to 72, 70%. Google Ads went from 45 down to 30, 25%, but staying consistent here. Um, If we acquire, so the NCAC went up quite hard. Now, normally what I see, brands, most brands have it the other way around, where Meta is kind of like the top of funnel engine and Google is the bottom of the funnel chipping in. Now, for you, you obviously have a business where there's already tons of search volume, and some of the other brands inside the TEA, they have, very social ads type of product. And so Meta is much more leaning towards, budget is much more leaning towards Meta. So it looks like the additional jumps in spend. I mean, the question is, can we spend more on Google when there's more search volume? The only question that we have right now is like, hey, if we scale Google right now, what would happen to this number right here? That's the question that we need to answer. And if you look at it, so here when Meta was lower and Google was staying consistent, your nCAC was simply much lower. Now, normally it is when you scale, yes, your nCAC grows, but not to the extent that we see here. So if I take the average of what we see here of this nCAC, let me see, that's the average, roughly $50. And we go all the way up to here, which is $80. So you went from, what was it?
Yeah.
$50 to $80. That is a jump of more than 50% in new customer acquisition costs. So per
Yeah.
customer, you're paying 50% on top to acquire that customer just by increasing Meta from this to this. So I personally think, based on this sheet, that what you want to do is reduce Meta, increase Google, and see what happens. Because
Yeah.
it looks like Meta cannot acquire the customers effectively, and it looks like Google can.
So, okay, so open to that. Um, I mean, I could also be a lot more brutal in my Facebook management as well. You know, spike things as soon as they start to turn. So anyway, that's not your question for you, but the Google ads. So if we're going to scale, like, what do we do with our campaigns?
Yeah, so that's the next question. So you have only have a couple of campaigns running here, right? So it's not too much. So you have the fetch the rest, which can be scaled. Um, yeah, this one we should scale by. This is a very, I know this campaign is a fetch the rest. This one is limited by budget. Is currently set to $31. Can be scaled easily to more than double that. And this is based on the clicks. Those clicks are converting. These are people that are actively searching. So let's have a look here, right? This is, let's do the last 30 days. So you can see that if I optimize the platform on the platform numbers, I'm going to make destructive choices for my business, right? Because Meta will tell us it's a very good ROAS. Google will tell us a good ROAS, but your bank account, your nCAC will tell us no, it's not the right direction. You won't see that in the ad platform. That's why it's so
Yeah.
important to track them outside of it. So, being here, we have okay, this one right here, wallpapers, right? 47 conversion in the last 30 days. Your ROAS here was about an 11.5. So this one can easily be scaled. First and foremost through adding more budget. So this currently one is missing out. Like there's a lot of potential in here. I think you for your business, you have a misaligned incentive around budgets for the channels. I think Meta should do less, Google should do more.
Yeah.
At least
S
until we find that ratio.
yeah. Okay, so if we're going to optimize Google,
Hmm.
you know, I've I've used this analogy with you a bunch of times that, you know, it's the ginger stepchild, it gets no love. It's just
Yeah,
kind of set and forget.
exactly.
What do we do to bring it up to speed? Like, is it something that we should look to get resource to do? Should I pay
Um,
someone like you to optimize it? Or do we
I mean,
just
for where you're at,
completely?
so I mean, there's a lot that can be done, but I think for you right now, it is as simple as adding more budget here, because this one will do the rest, and this one will scale by itself. It's super easy. So this one does 47. This does all the conversions. This is all your wallpapers. There's almost 600 of them in there. So we can do two things. First and foremost, the impress share is 17%. The budget spent here is this. So the moment we are adding more budget, we simply get more conversions from this. Now, because
Right.
this one doesn't carry any signals, because this is a fetch the rest signals, meaning it's not conversion-based optimization, it's based on clicks. But on clicks, it's already doing very well. That's why there likely is no correlation with Meta here, and therefore we can just push it. So I would recommend pushing this all the way up to $74. So doubling this. If you agree to that,
Okay,
I'll
go
apply
for
it
it.
right now. Okay,
Yeah, go
we'll do
for
that
it.
right now. So that's doubling that. So that will result in about $1,000 a month extra budget in Google, right? So that's
The,
$250
yeah.
a week for Google. That's good. We'll
The
see that in the in the MPI sheet.
the crazy thing is, Vin, remember when you set that up, you're like, oh, we'll set it for $20 a day. I won't spend that, but we'll set it up back
Yes,
in the day. And look
back
at
in
it, it's
yeah,
gobbling it up.
and I'm also, I'm also for most of the brands, this typically doesn't work. But because you have 600 SKUs in your wallpapers, now it's accumulating, right? So you have lots of products with lots of little clicks, and now this thing becomes bigger. So yeah, we can scale more. And as you can see, I mean, $74 a day is still not a lot in my books. Um, but the big part is here, we only spend it right now on budget, but we could still increase this number right here, which is generating all the sales at 11.5 in the last 30 days. So by now simply doubling the budget, we already get more sales because it's chipping in this. But we could still choose to increase also this later, because one
Yeah.
thing at a time. And then we'll see that this campaign can be scaled even further. But we have to keep an eye on the NPI sheet. You want to make one change now, look over the week what's going to happen, come back to that NPI sheet, keep filling in the data in the NPI sheet. And based on the numbers that we're seeing there, we start to see the changes and the changes that we make in correlation with the business health. And then we can say, okay, we're basically benchmarking ad spend per platform against the platform ROAS so that we have a good idea of like, okay, this ratio between Google and Meta spend, let's say it's 50-50, I don't know, that's the perfect fit. So the moment we want to scale Meta, we also have to scale Google, or we want to scale Google, we have to scale Meta. Because right now they're out of proportion. It's like, what is it, 80-20 or 70-30, which is not working for Meta. So that's the
Okay.
effectiveness that
So
we're
I've
doing.
just chucked a whole bunch of new ads into Meta today, so my budget's gonna that spend's gonna go up, but I will, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll start winding that back. See the PMAX, like that's what's that 150 a day? That's
Yeah, this
not.
one can also easily be tripled. Now the question is, PMAX, actually we should move you away from PMAX and put you more onto shopping. Because PMAX this is obviously an old structure. PMAX has a built-in framework where it goes always for a certain percentage after returning a warm traffic. So PMAX by default will spend a percentage of his ad spend to returning warm traffic, retargeting traffic. Why does it do that? Because it can show you really nice numbers, and Google has one KPI, and it makes you spend more money. So it overlaps. If you look at this, 1500, 1400 ROAS looks really amazing. However, how much of those are returning people or retargeting from Meta or vice versa? We don't know. So um, that's why I said like it's all about benchmarking right now. These numbers are all directional. It doesn't tell us anything about it's just directional. And so we need to look at like the combination of what we're doing it. But what I would do in your stead is optimize, move you away from PMAX into a standard shopping. Standard shopping still has a higher percentage of new visitors, net new, than PMAX does. And with PMAX, you typically don't know how much money is spent on these different
So how
platforms.
do we do that then? Do I come back next week and do that?
I think we can, yeah. So the majority of your money, so 4,200 is spent there. You have about $100 there, 90. So these two can be scrapped. These $200 are useless. And then there's, yeah, okay. So $200. It's not a lot, but those $200 are definitely retargeting wise, and Gmail sucks. But we have no control that this money is flowing into these lanes. This is search. Again, in PMAX, we don't know how much of this budget is going into search or shopping. So the only way to figure that out is to actually look inside our reporting editor. So if we saw 4,200 there, if we create a report, can I pull up my
Yeah, it
reports?
used to be Google Shopping. I've always
Reporting.
struggled with Meta as well as getting new audiences. We
Yeah,
always, and as soon as we try and scale, we get high frequency.
exactly. And so you see here that we had 4,200 in the last 30 days. That was in your PMAX on search, but only 3,100 is spent on your MCID, meaning your shopping ads. So the other $1,000, 1,100 going into regular search is not bad. It's just something that we need to take account for. Like, okay, there's about an $1,100 that goes into regular search because Google will combine them both. But shopping has lower CPCs, had a better user experience. So if our shopping typically has a better result than our search, we want to steer our money mostly towards shopping ads. But in
100%.
PMAX, we cannot do that. So that's why.